At Westfield Academy, where designer backpacks and privilege echoed through marble corridors, survival depended not on academic excellence, but on social hierarchy and intimidation. The established order seemed unbreakable until Maya Rodriguez arrived, clutching a worn messenger bag and hoping to remain invisible. Maya had learned long ago that drawing attention meant trouble. Her father, once a respected boxing coach, had taught her discipline and technique before his passing 2 years earlier. Now, she and her mother Carmen struggled to make ends meet, working multiple jobs to afford even the basic necessities. This transfer to Westfield represented their last hope for a scholarship opportunity. The sprawling campus intimidated Maya from the moment she stepped through its iron gates. Students moved in clusters, their expensive clothes and confident laughter creating an invisible barrier around them. Maya pulled her second-hand jacket closer and tried to navigate the crowded hallways without making eye contact. Near a bank of pristine lockers stood a group that clearly commanded respect through fear. At their center was Brandon Walsh, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing his Letterman jacket like armor. His girlfriend Jessica Martinez flipped her perfectly styled hair while scanning newcomers with predatory interest. Behind them lurked Marcus and Derek, always ready to amplify their leader's every word with cruel laughter. Maya attempted to slip past them unnoticed, but whispers followed in her wake. "Who's that? Look at that bag. Probably from a thrift store. Does she even belong here?" The comment stung, but Maya remembered her mother's advice about keeping her head down and focusing on her studies. In her first English class, Maya chose a corner seat and opened the notebook her father had given her years ago. Its pages contained boxing drills, motivational quotes, and his handwritten wisdom. One line stood out: "Real strength means knowing when not to fight." She traced the familiar words with her finger, drawing comfort from the connection to him, but peace proved elusive at Westfield. During lunch, Maya found a quiet table in the cafeteria's far corner. She had just unwrapped her simple sandwich when Brandon's group descended like vultures. "Mind if we sit?" Brandon asked without waiting for permission, dropping into the seat across from her. Jessica slid in beside him, her smile sharp as broken glass. "So, you're the new scholarship kid," Jessica observed, examining Maya's worn sneakers with theatrical disgust. "That jacket looks like it came from my grandmother's closet." Marcus and Derek erupted in laughter, the sound cutting through the cafeteria noise like a blade. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but forced herself to remain calm. She had promised her mother to avoid trouble at all costs. Their financial situation couldn't handle any complications that might jeopardize her scholarship prospects, so she gathered her belongings silently and tried to leave, but Marcus grabbed her book. "What's this?" "A diary." He held it high, flipping through pages filled with her father's handwriting. "Look, she writes little inspirational messages to herself." The group howled with laughter as Maya reached desperately for the notebook. Brandon blocked her path, his bulk preventing any escape. "Careful now," he warned with mock concern. "Wouldn't want you to get hurt on your first week." When the bell finally rang, Maya retrieved her notebook and fled to the nearest bathroom. Alone in the stall, she fought back tears of frustration and rage. Her father's voice echoed in her memory: "Control your emotions. A clear mind is your greatest weapon." She steadied her breathing and returned to class, knowing this was only the beginning. The harassment continued daily. In chemistry class, someone accidentally knocked over her lab materials. During gym, Jessica made sure Maya was always chosen last for teams. Brandon would corner her in empty hallways, using his size to intimidate while staying just shy of physical contact. Each incident was carefully calculated to avoid teacher notice while maximizing psychological impact. Maya endured it all silently, Channeling her anger into mental exercises her father had taught her, she catalogued her opponent's movements, noting their weaknesses and blind spots. Brandon favored his right side due to an old football injury. Jessica's perfectly manicured nails made her grip weak. Marcus was all talk when separated from the group, but Maya kept this knowledge locked away, determined to honor her promise to her mother. The breaking point came 3 weeks into the semester. Maya was studying alone in the library when Brandon's crew surrounded her table. "Time for orientation," Brandon announced loud enough to carry throughout the silent space. "New students need to learn their place." Jessica leaned forward, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "See, at Westfield, we have traditions. Scholarship kids show proper respect to their betters." She knocked Maya's books to the floor, scattering papers everywhere. Marcus stepped on her calculator, crushing the plastic casing with deliberate force. Maya knelt to collect her belongings, hands trembling with suppressed fury. Every instinct screamed at her to fight back, but her mother's worried face flashed before her eyes. They couldn't afford the consequences of retaliation. As she gathered the broken calculator pieces, Derek kicked her backpack across the floor, spilling its contents everywhere. "Oops," he said with exaggerated innocence. "Butterfingers." That evening, Maya sat in their small apartment kitchen while her mother counted tips from her restaurant shift. Carmen noticed her daughter's unusual silence and the damage to her school supplies. "What happened today, mija?" she asked gently. Maya wanted to tell her everything, but seeing the exhaustion in her mother's eyes, she simply said, "Nothing important, Mama, just adjusting to the new school." Carmen studied her daughter's face with maternal intuition. "Remember what I told you about keeping your head down. We can't afford any trouble that might affect your scholarship. Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," Maya whispered, though the words felt like swallowing glass. The 4th week brought escalation. During lunch, Maya found her locker vandalized with crude messages written in permanent marker. Her textbooks were missing, forcing her to explain to teachers why she came to class unprepared. Anonymous notes appeared in her backpack with threats and insults designed to break her spirit. But Maya's resolve only hardened. Each attack reminded her of her father's lessons about mental fortitude. "Your opponents will try to break you before the fight begins," he had said. "Never let them see that their words affect you." She walked the hallways with increasing confidence, meeting hostile stares with calm indifference. The change didn't go unnoticed. Jessica complained to Brandon about Maya's growing composure. "She's not reacting anymore." "We need to try something different." Brandon's eyes darkened with malicious intent. "I know exactly what to do." Friday afternoon found Maya alone in the empty chemistry lab, making up work from her stolen textbooks. She thought she was safe in the academic building after hours, but footsteps in the hallway proved her wrong. Brandon entered first, followed by Marcus and Derek. Jessica appeared in the doorway, blocking the only exit. "Time for your final exam," Brandon announced, his voice echoing in the empty room. "Let's see if you learned anything about respect." Maya set down her pencil and turned to face them. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her breathing remained steady. Years of training had taught her to stay calm under pressure. She assessed the situation quickly. 3 male opponents, 1 blocking escape, confined space with lab equipment as potential obstacles. "I don't want any trouble," she said quietly, though her muscles were already tensing for action. Brandon laughed harshly. "Too late for that. You should have learned your place weeks ago." He stepped closer, using his height advantage to loom over her. "Maybe a little scare will help you remember." When Brandon reached out to grab her shoulder, Maya moved. The motion was subtle, barely perceptible, but it created distance between them. Brandon frowned and lunged forward more aggressively. This time, Maya stepped aside completely, leaving him grasping air. "Stop playing games," Marcus snarled, moving to flank her, but Maya was already repositioning, keeping her back to the wall and all opponents in her line of sight. The movements felt natural, muscle memory from thousands of hours training with her father. Brandon's face flushed red with embarrassment and anger. "Grab her," he ordered Derek, who reluctantly moved forward. Maya waited until he was within reach, then twisted away from his grasping hands. Derek stumbled into a lab table, sending beakers crashing to the floor. "Enough!" Brandon roared. He rushed forward with both hands extended, intending to pin Maya against the wall. She ducked under his arms and pivoted behind him, leaving him pressed against empty air. The fluid movement spoke of years of disciplined practice. For the first time, doubt flickered in Brandon's eyes. This wasn't the helpless victim he had expected. Maya's stance was balanced, her hands positioned defensively but ready to strike. She looked like someone who knew exactly how to handle herself in a fight. "What are you waiting for?" Jessica shrieked from the doorway. "There are 3 of you!" But Marcus and Derek exchanged uncertain glances. They were bullies, not fighters, and Maya's confident posture suggested she was neither afraid nor unprepared. Brandon, however, was too invested in his reputation to back down now. "You think you're tough," he snarled, rolling his shoulders like a boxer entering the ring. "Let's see how tough you really are." Maya didn't respond with words. Instead, she shifted into a proper fighting stance, feet shoulder-width apart, hands raised in a classic guard position. The transformation was startling. The quiet, bookish girl had vanished, replaced by someone who clearly knew combat. Brandon threw a wild haymaker, telegraphing the punch from miles away. Maya slipped the blow easily, countering with a sharp jab to his solar plexus. The strike landed cleanly, doubling him over with a grunt of pain. Before he could recover, she grabbed his extended wrist and twisted, applying a basic joint lock that sent him to his knees. "Stay down," she commanded, her voice steady, but carrying unmistakable authority. Marcus rushed to help his friend, but Maya was ready. She released Brandon and pivoted to face the new threat. When Marcus grabbed for her, she trapped his arm and swept his legs, sending him crashing into a desk. Derek took one look at his friends on the ground and backed toward the door. "This isn't over," Brandon gasped, clutching his wrist. Maya stood over him, no longer the frightened girl they had tormented for weeks. "Yes, it is. Touch me again, and next time I won't be so gentle." Jessica had already fled, leaving her boyfriend to limp away with Marcus and Derek. Maya watched them go, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She had kept her promise as long as possible, but they had forced her hand. By Monday morning, the story had spread throughout Westfield Academy. Different versions circulated depending on who told it, but the core facts remained consistent. Maya Rodriguez had single-handedly defeated 3 upperclassmen in under a minute. Some accounts described elaborate martial arts moves. Others painted her as a street fighter with a violent past. Maya walked the hallways to a mixture of awed stares and fearful whispers. Students who had ignored her existence now stepped aside respectfully. Others watched her with new interest, perhaps seeing a potential ally against their own tormentors. But Maya took no pleasure in the attention. That evening, she sat with her father's notebook and wrote, "Day 22 at Westfield. I broke my promise today. I had to fight to protect myself. I don't know if I solved the problem or made it worse." The consequences came swiftly. Principal Williams summoned her to his office the following morning. The room felt oppressive, filled with academic awards and photos of distinguished alumni. Across from the principal's massive desk sat Jessica, tears streaming down her face in a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Miss Rodriguez," Principal Williams began sternly, "we've received disturbing reports about your behavior. Multiple students claim you attacked them without provocation in the chemistry lab." Maya felt the familiar knot of injustice forming in her stomach. Jessica's tears were clearly fake, but they were effective theater for the administrator. "I was defending myself, sir. They cornered me in an empty room. Jessica sobbed louder. She's lying. She just started hitting people. I was so scared I ran away. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, making sure to maintain the principal's sympathy. Williams frowned at Maya over his glasses. These are serious allegations. Violence has no place at Westfield Academy, regardless of the circumstances. One more incident, and you'll face suspension, which would terminate your scholarship eligibility. Maya nodded silently, understanding the threat. Her academic future hung by a thread, and Jessica's satisfied smirk made it clear this was exactly the outcome they had wanted. Truth was less important than perception, and in this world of privilege and influence, Maya's word carried little weight. After leaving the office, Maya found herself approached by unexpected allies. A sophomore named Carlos, who had been Brandon's frequent target, thanked her quietly for standing up to them. "I know you were defending yourself," he whispered. "We all know what they're really like." Other students began sharing their own stories of harassment by Brandon's group. Maya realized she wasn't the only victim, just the first to successfully fight back. The knowledge brought both comfort and responsibility. Her actions had consequences beyond her own situation. That afternoon, Maya noticed something different in the school's atmosphere. Brandon and his friends stayed in their established territory, no longer roaming the halls looking for targets. Jessica's cruel laughter was noticeably absent from the cafeteria. Other bullies seemed less aggressive, perhaps wondering if their victims might also have hidden strengths. But Maya knew this was temporary. Bullies rarely accepted defeat gracefully, and Brandon's humiliation would demand revenge. She needed to stay alert and prepared for whatever came next. A week later, Maya's caution proved justified. After school, she found a note in her locker. "Parking lot, 4 p.m. Come alone, or we'll make your mother's life difficult too." The threat against her family made Maya's blood run cold, but it also crystallized her resolve. She would end this today. One way or another, the parking lot was nearly empty when Maya arrived. Brandon waited beside his expensive sports car, flanked by Marcus, Derek, and 2 older boys she didn't recognize. Jessica stood nearby with her phone ready, clearly planning to record whatever happened. "Thought you might not show," Brandon called out, his wrist still wrapped in a bandage from their previous encounter. "Guess you're not as smart as you pretend to be." Maya walked closer, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She appeared calm, but every sense was heightened, cataloging potential weapons and escape routes. The parking lot's open space favored multiple attackers, but it also meant room to maneuver. "What do you want, Brandon?" she asked simply. His laugh was harsh and bitter. "What I want is to finish what we started. You embarrassed me in front of the whole school. Time to settle that debt." The older boys moved to flank her while Marcus and Derek blocked potential retreat paths. Maya recognized the tactic, overwhelm the target with numbers and aggression, but her father had prepared her for exactly this scenario. 5 against 1, she observed. Hardly fair odds. "Fair," Brandon spat. "You want fair? You should have thought about that before you made me look weak." Maya shrugged off her backpack and set it carefully on the ground. The motion was deliberate, buying time to assess her opponent's positions and commitment levels. The older boys looked uncomfortable, probably regretting their agreement to help. Marcus and Derek were nervous, remembering their previous defeat. Only Brandon seemed truly invested in violence. "Last chance to walk away," Maya said quietly. Brandon's response was to charge forward with a roar of rage. But this time, Maya was ready. She sidestepped his rush and drove an elbow into his ribs as he passed. The blow sent him stumbling into his car's fender with a metallic crash. One of the older boys grabbed for Maya's arm, but she twisted free and kicked him in the knee. He went down hard, clutching his leg and cursing. The second older boy took one look at his friend on the ground and backed away quickly. "I'm out," he declared. "This isn't what I signed up for." Marcus and Derek exchanged panicked glances as their reinforcements evaporated. When Maya turned her attention to them, they both raised their hands in surrender. "We're good," Derek said quickly. "No problems here." That left only Brandon, who was pulling himself upright using his car for support. His face was twisted with fury and humiliation, made worse by Jessica's shocked expression. She had expected to film Maya's destruction, not her boyfriend's second defeat. "It's over, Brandon," Maya said firmly. "Stop this before someone gets seriously hurt." But Brandon was beyond rational thought. He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small knife that glinted in the afternoon sun. Gasps echoed from the remaining onlookers as the situation escalated from a fistfight to something potentially deadly. "Now we'll see how tough you really are," Brandon snarled, brandishing the weapon. Maya's training kicked in automatically. Her father had taught her weapon defense, emphasizing distance control and disarmament techniques. She circled away from Brandon's advance, staying light on her feet and keeping obstacles between them. When Brandon lunged with the knife, Maya moved inside his reach and trapped his wrist. A sharp twist and the weapon clattered to the asphalt. Before Brandon could react, Maya swept his legs and followed him to the ground, applying a chokehold that cut off his air supply. "Drop it!" The voice came from across the parking lot, where 2 security guards were running toward them. Maya immediately released Brandon and stepped back, hands raised to show she was unarmed. The guards quickly took control of the situation, securing the knife and separating the combatants. Jessica tried to delete her phone footage, but one guard had already seen her recording. Within minutes, police arrived to take statements and review the evidence. The video told the complete story. Brandon's group surrounding Maya, the appearance of the knife, and her defensive actions throughout the encounter. What looked like aggression was revealed as skilled self-defense against multiple attackers. At the police station, Maya finally called her mother. Carmen arrived pale with worry, having heard only that her daughter was involved in a fight at school. But after reviewing the security footage and witness statements, the officers painted a clearer picture. "Your daughter showed remarkable restraint," the detective explained. "She was outnumbered 5-1, threatened with a weapon, and still used minimal force. If anything, she should be commended for her self-control." Carmen hugged Maya tightly, tears of relief mixing with maternal pride. "Why didn't you tell me what was happening at school?" "I didn't want you to worry," Maya whispered. "I thought I could handle it myself." The aftermath moved quickly. Brandon faced charges for assault with a weapon and conspiracy. His enablers received suspensions and community service. Jessica lost her student council position and faced disciplinary action for filing false reports. Principal Williams called Maya back to his office, but this time his tone was different. "Miss Rodriguez, I owe you an apology. The investigation has revealed a pattern of harassment that went unaddressed. The school board wants to commend your courage in standing up to this behavior." Maya accepted the apology gracefully, though she couldn't forget how quickly they had been willing to believe Jessica's lies. Trust, once broken, was difficult to repair. But positive changes followed. Other students began speaking out about harassment they had endured in silence. A new zero-tolerance policy was implemented for bullying. Maya found herself approached by classmates who wanted to learn self-defense techniques. "Could you maybe teach us?" asked Sophia, a quiet girl who had been targeted for her accent. Not to hurt anyone, just to feel safer. Maya considered the request carefully. Her father had always said that true strength came from protecting others, not dominating them. She agreed to start an informal self-defense group that met after school. The sessions began small, just 5 students learning basic techniques in an empty classroom. Maya taught them what her father had taught her: awareness, de-escalation, and physical defense as a last resort. She emphasized that fighting was never the goal. confidence and preparation were. Word spread quickly about the group. Within a month, they had 20 regular members and requests from other schools to share their program. Maya found herself speaking to administrators and parents about bullying prevention and student empowerment. "Maya has shown us something important," Principal Williams announced at a school assembly. "That courage isn't about looking for fights. It's about standing up for what's right when no one else will." The applause was thunderous, but Maya felt embarrassed by the attention. She had never wanted to be a symbol or spokesperson. All she had done was refuse to be a victim. During her speech to the assembly, Maya kept her remarks brief and focused. Nobody should have to live in fear at school. We all deserve to feel safe and respected. Sometimes that means standing up for ourselves, but it also means standing up for each other. Months passed, and Westfield Academy transformed. The culture of fear that had dominated student life gradually gave way to something healthier. Upperclassmen began mentoring underclassmen instead of preying on them. Teachers paid closer attention to student interactions and intervened when necessary. Maya's academic performance improved dramatically once she no longer spent mental energy on survival strategies. Her grades earned her recognition on the honor roll and caught the attention of college recruiters. The scholarship that had once seemed threatened was now expanded to include leadership programs. But the real measure of change came in smaller moments. When Maya saw a new student eating lunch alone, she invited him to join her group. When someone dropped their books in the hallway, multiple students stopped to help instead of stepping over them. The ripple effects of her courage continued spreading. 1 year after her arrival at Westfield, Maya stood before a graduating class as their student speaker. She looked out at faces that had witnessed her transformation from frightened newcomer to confident leader. Some had been her tormentors, others her supporters, but all had learned something from her example. "Change doesn't happen overnight," she told them. "It happens when ordinary people decide they won't accept things as they are. When we choose to be brave instead of safe, to speak up instead of staying silent." In the audience, her mother wiped away proud tears. Carmen had watched her daughter grow from a girl trying to hide from the world into a young woman ready to change it. The scholarship would take Maya to college, but the real education had happened here at Westfield. After the ceremony, Maya returned to the chemistry lab where everything had changed. The room looked the same, but she felt completely different. Her father's notebook remained her constant companion, but now it contained new wisdom alongside his old lessons. She wrote one final entry about Westfield Academy: "I came here afraid and hoping to disappear. I'm leaving proud of who I've become." Dad would have been proud too. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to let others make you small. Maya closed the notebook and walked out of Westfield Academy for the last time. Behind her, a legacy remained, not of violence, but of courage. Students who learned that strength came from lifting others up rather than tearing them down. A community that chose justice over silence. The quiet girl with the worn backpack had become something more than she ever imagined, not through seeking conflict, but by refusing to accept injustice. Her story would be told for years to come, inspiring others to find their own courage when facing their own bullies. And in that way, her father's greatest lesson lived on. True strength wasn't about winning fights, but about making sure fewer fights needed to be fought at all.